Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting held virtually, where we have Board of Education Chair Shay Woodbury presiding, and she will now open the meeting and call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 28th Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. Again, I am Shay Woodbury, Chair of Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education, and I appreciate your attendance via live, whatever you're looking at us on right now, whether it's our channel 2 or our online method. So we appreciate you all taking the time to still be engaged with our meetings. What we're going to do tonight is still stay true to our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and invocation, and then we'll do a roll call to, well, first let's do the roll call to establish our quorum, and then we'll get to the Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation. So, Dr. Harrison, if you will establish a quorum by taking our roll.
Yes, ma'am. Shay Woodbury.
Present.
Lyda Calvert-Hayes.
Present.
Barbara Burke. Barbara Burke. Andrea Bramer. Okay, thank you, Ms. Burke. Andrea Bramer.
Present.
Dana Jones.
Present.
Leah Crawley.
Present.
Deanna Kaplan.
Present.
Elizabeth Motsinger.
I'm here.
Marilyn Parker.
Present.
All are present, Chair Woodbury.
Thank you so much. So if we can all do the Pledge of Allegiance to definitely show our pride, especially during this time, and how we as a country and nation responding to this time, I think that will be a great thing to do, although we are not in person. So we'll go ahead and get started with our pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
One
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all so much. Next, we will have Lyda Board Member Calvert-Hayes give our invocation.
Let us pray. In times of stress, we ask for your support of our teachers, superintendent, staff, and our students in our school system. Guide our board to work together for the best solutions during these difficult times. Help us to make the right decisions for all as board members of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System. Amen.
Thank you, Board Member Calvert-Hayes. Next, we will have our agenda review. Is there a motion to pass our agenda for tonight?
Move to approve. This is Elizabeth.
Second, Lyda.
Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, Dr. Harrison, if you can get establish the vote.
Chair Woodbury.
Yes.
Lyda Calvert-Hayes.
Yes.
Barbara Burke.
yes,
Andrea Bramer.
yes,
Dana Jones.
Yes.
Leah Crawley.
yes,
Deanna Kaplan.
Yes.
Elizabeth Motsinger.
Yes.
And Marilyn Parker. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, as we move forward on the agenda.
Thank you. Before we get to our public comments on the agenda items, I do want to recognize on behalf of the board Teacher Appreciation Week for May 4th through 8th. At the end of our meeting, we will have some special words to recognize Teacher Appreciation Week, but I wanted to make sure, just in case for all of you who cannot stay on the meeting for the entire time, that you know that the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education and this community in general, especially during this time, recognize Teacher Appreciation Week for the week of May 4th through 8th, which will, of course, be a time when we will not be meeting. So we wanted to make sure that we recognize Teacher Appreciation Week during this board meeting. So with that being said, hopefully everyone will be able to stay on to the end to hear a few words to recognize our teachers. But now we will go to the public comments on the agenda item. Just know that as usual at this time, we will hear public comments on the agenda items. Please know that we reserve this time to hear comments only on the items that are on tonight's agenda, either for action or discussion. Make sure you direct your comments to me as the chair, and know that while we are still not able to respond, we still will direct an appropriate staff member for any questions that you have. Make sure that you still are respectful and kind, and know that we cannot talk about sensitive and private student or personnel information in this public setting. Please know that as usual, we only have, or each comment will only have up to 3 minutes. If you need more time, you can always, of course, email us, and we will definitely respond. So thank you, and I will now turn it over to Dr. Harrison to facilitate the public comments. Thank you.
And thank you, Chair Woodbury. We had 4 individuals sign up for public comment: Mr. Aljabar, Mrs. Michaela Green, Mrs. Julie Miller, and Mrs. Joanne Clifford. We've been reaching out to them via email about their public comments, and they don't appear to be on the line. So I would ask for your patience if we could revisit this, if possible, between discussion and votes. We are trying to reach out to them. We want to ensure that they know that we want to hear from them. So would you all mind accommodating that between discussion and votes? We'll come back. If they still have not called in, we can move forward.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda then is the discussion items. And first we will have our Chief Academic Officer, Nicolette Grant, who will be sharing with us e-learning, monitoring, and supports.
Good evening, Board Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, Superintendent Dr. Hairston, board members, and our Winston-Salem Forsyth County community members who are listening in tonight. I'm going to take the screen and share an update on our e-learning that has been provided for students over the last several weeks. Okay. The presentation I'll share tonight was shared with our curriculum committee before our spring break. I want to start by sharing some of the preparation that our central office team engaged in to support our teachers and students as we moved into e-learning in March. One of the first things that our team did was revise all of our curriculum documents to prepare instruction. Initially, we thought for 2 weeks of e-learning, and so we prepared that information for our teachers. Teacher leaders engaged in a day workshop at Atkins High School to help prepare them for moving on to e-learning. And we shared all of the resources that central office has provided for them. We then, after supporting the Power School learning training for teachers and building capacity, those leaders went back to their school site and provided support for their colleagues in the building to make sure that we would be ready for e-learning beginning on March 19th. Our instructional services team also worked with the technology department to develop a list of all of the technology and digital devices that are available to the students in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. That is located on our COVID-19 page, where we have a list for each grade level and each subject, including core and encore classes, of resources that are available to support e-learning for students. We also assisted with the help desk We helped man the help desk and answer questions from families, including having some of our ESL team to serve as interpreters to support the language needs of our community. And then our media services team and our media coordinators assisted the technology department in just cataloging and distributing the Chromebooks for e-learning. As we engaged in the first few weeks of e-learning, based on feedback from teachers and families, we felt the need to develop some clear guidelines for how e-learning should occur. We heard from families how difficult it was to engage students and for them to work at home and pets at home and just the structure. Kids were on the computer for a great many hours. And so our team, with input from our instructional team, feedback from parents and teachers, we developed e-learning guidelines that gave some guiding thoughts around what it's like to learn in a home environment, to be mindful of the stress that's created in the home and the supports that families need to work with students. We came up with recommended time for students to work on the computer and time for off-computer work. And then as part of those guidelines, we also came up with the Flex Day, which I'll share in the second presentation. Additionally, we helped by creating videos for teachers and students and families. So families to help them to figure out how to find all of our resources, and help videos for teachers to help them with developing e-learning lessons that were engaging for students, and then videos to help students as well. We also engaged in shadowing, going into the Power Learning pages of the teachers and then reaching out to them individually to provide support, as well as supporting during virtual PLT meetings with school teams. We developed the fourth quarter resources, and which were grounded in essential learning that we felt students must have to be successful and ready for the next school year. And then we engaged in creating a catalog of virtual professional development that we're offering to teachers during this time out. So those are some of the things that we've worked on in preparation. This is just an example of one of the web pages that are available for families. On the Office of Early Learning website, they have a link to resources for families. Since I did this presentation, they've now added one more icon for choice boards. But there's a link here to resources that the state has provided around early learning, as well as resources for pre-K, math, ELA, social studies, and science. They have resources in the Scholastic Learn at Home that have projects that students can work on, as well as digital books for students to read. And then the Office of Early Learning has provided videos of model lessons, of small mini lessons of Haggerty, phonological awareness lessons for students in English and in Spanish. We've seen some videos students have sent in to us showing us them working on those lessons. So that was fantastic to see. And then we have some resources for K2 for families to work on together offline in English and in Spanish, as well as some movement activities, knowing that movement is just as important for students' development. And so we have some resources provided there. So this is just a sample of one of the pages that families can access from the Office of Early Learning's webpage. Another resource that's available, families can access from the COVID-19 tab from our main page. This is where we have videos that explain to families how to access their child's Power Learning pages in English and in Spanish, and also how to access all of the digital resources we have. Additionally, on this page, we have a video and directions that help families to find out how to access the K2 iStation at home, the 3-8 iReady Get Started lessons, and also how to manage Microsoft Team learning sessions. Additionally, on the site, we have a tab to a help form. It's a Google form where families, if they need help with instruction, they can fill out that form. Once they indicate the school, the email is directly sent to the principal of that school, who will route that to the appropriate teacher. So those are additional resources to help families with the e-learning at home. And then finally, what we're currently working on, we are continuing to monitor the Power Learning pages of teachers and giving them advice and feedback about how to improve the lessons for students. We are monitoring iStation usage, Edgenuity, and North Carolina Virtual Public School usage and performance. We are getting updates from DPI on the remote learning guidelines and resources. DPI is meeting almost weekly to give guidance to schools on how to navigate through this time. And then we're providing support through phone calls with instructional facilitators, reading interventionists, and teachers. We've had one-on-one calls with pre-K teachers and teacher assistants, one-on-one calls with art, music, PE teachers, engaging in meetings with principals to answer questions and provide resources, sharing academic resources and e-learning tips and technical support. We're holding Microsoft Teams PLT meetings and joining teachers in those meetings, joining and engaging in IEP meetings, e-learning support. We're creating Weave videos like the Haggerty videos to support teachers with that, to have some face-to-face direct teaching time. We're completing some of the ROTC program requirements and paperwork, providing virtual professional development, providing translation services through the help desk and also through the documents that we have created, and then finally assisting with the academic modifications for our students, the EC, language, ESL, and then AAG students. So those are just some of the things that we have a month and a half to prepare for e-learning and then to monitor and support e-learning. Are there any questions?
Ms. Grant, this is Shay Woodbury. I wanted to ask you, according to data that I've requested of the superintendent about student login and use, we have, approximately 5,000 students that have not logged in to participate in this magnificent platform that we've created. And I, think that the board and our community would like to, hear what we're doing to accommodate these students, because according to the State Board of Education's definition of remote learning, we still have to make sure that we consider learning, as relates to any issues at home that may be preventing them from learning, and that can't be a simple barrier. We have to figure out how to kind of go beyond that challenge to reach out to all of our students to make sure they're able to capitalize on this new way of learning. So can you speak to the data and what we're doing to try to mediate, to try to overcome those challenges?
So the e-learning is obviously quite an adjustment from our traditional learning, and students across the country and teachers are adjusting to this. What we have asked and shared with principals at our meetings are, asking the teachers first to reach out and see if students are not engaging, if they can find out why. Is it because of connectivity, which we do have hotspots we can provide? Is it because they need a device? We have devices we can provide. Is it because they're not feeling well, or there's a sickness or illness in the family? Is it because the older student is trying to help the younger students and the older student can't finish their work? So we've asked that teachers be the first line of defense to reach out to the students that are not engaged, to find out why and to find out what barriers may exist for those students. We also know that there may be cases where some students may have moved out of our area. If they have been economically impacted greatly, they may have moved. So we're trying to find out if our students are still in our area, what barriers do they have that we can address. We've also asked that counselors then follow up, or social workers, if we have not been able to reach out to those students. So those are the things that we're starting. And we also realize that being on the computer for this amount of time, there is some weariness. So with the Flex Fridays, we're trying to do something different for students and cutting back on some of the amount of screen time. So we know that the longer they're on, we need to do something different to keep them engaged. So those are some of the things that we're trying to look at currently.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the Chief Academic Officer.
This is Elizabeth. I do have a question, and has there been any planning for summer school, or is that going to be focused more on early return?
So we have multiple plans that we are looking at. Before the e-learning occurred, we had a plan for face-to-face summer school, our RISE summer program, as well as our Pathways to K and Pathways to K and Pathways to One. What we are doing now is looking at some virtual options and blended options. And then based on last week's state board meeting, the Jumpstart Bridge summer program, we're in early planning on that too. So we have some plans in place. We're trying to look at logistics on whether we will have access to buildings for the face-to-face, knowing that there's some fatigue with e-learning, but we also are developing a plan for a virtual if that's the case that we need to go that route. So we're still looking at all of our options and making some plans for the summer.
Ms. Grant, this is Barbara.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Barbara Burke. Can you hear me? I wanted to ask about these students who have not logged in, if there would be a possibility for a summer catch-up program for them. If we can identify those students, find out why they were not able to take advantage of this opportunity, but then provide them another opportunity that would allow them to be able to catch up during the summer. Is that possible?
Yeah, so that's definitely possible. So as we reach out to those students, as teachers reach out directly, counselors and social workers, if we can find out if the barrier was the device and e-learning, we can look at inviting those students to our summer program. The challenge will be if the summer program is also virtual, then those students the same students may not engage. So, but definitely we can look at that and see if that was the barrier, if there's another plan in place, and if we have access to buildings to be able to provide a face-to-face option. So definitely we'll keep those students in mind.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more questions or comments regarding the e-learning monitoring supports, Ms. Grant will continue with another discussion item, the discussion item B, K-11 grading during remote learning.
Okay, I'll take the screen again. Let's see. Okay, we can see the screen. So the K-11 grading, we're going to go over some of the guidance from DPI and the State Board of Education. They have been engaging in meetings almost weekly to provide some guidance for us. Obviously, just as e-learning is new for us, the grading that's going to result from e-learning is also very new. So the first thing that our State Board of Education did was develop a definition for remote learning. They realized that not all schools in the state of North Carolina have access to the same level of device, technology, and resources. And so they wanted to make sure that the definition for remote learning was broad and inclusive. And so the definition the state developed was that our North Carolina public schools, remote learning is defined as learning that takes place outside of a traditional school setting using various media and formats, such as but not limited to video conference, telephone conference, print material, online material, or learning management systems. So that is inclusive of all schools in the state. They also outlined 5 critical factors that must be met for remote learning for grading to occur. In Winston-Salem, we are using the term e-learning since we do have devices that we are able to provide for students and hotspots. But our e-learning and the remote learning guidelines are that it needs to be accessible by all students for which learning is intended and responsive to diverse learning groups. And so that's something as our board members have mentioned, those students who are not engaged, those are the ones we need to find a way to remove those barriers. We need to maintain consistent communication between instructional staff and students, and our teachers are doing that by providing feedback and reaching out to their students through phone calls, Microsoft Teams meetings, emails. We need to address the curricular and instructional needs associated with the appropriate standards. Our instructional services team has designed the fourth quarter essential learning and provided that to teachers, and teachers are using that to guide their curriculum instruction for the fourth quarter. We need to have evidence of student learning, so we are collecting student work samples and providing grades for the work that they do, documenting that, but also allowing for mastery grading. So if a student wants to go back and redo assignments, they're able to do that to bring up those grades. And then we need to consider the whole child as well as the home learning environment. And that was done with our e-learning guidelines that we provided to schools around being mindful about the home, the stress that e-learning might cause, some of the barriers students might have at home, and providing guidelines regarding a schedule of time in front of the screen versus time off screen, and then the flexible Fridays. So some of the supports that we provided, I've actually already mentioned a few, but Kevin Sherrill and his team have deployed over 20,000 devices to students. They had distributed 3,600 hotspots to make sure families had access to the internet to complete their e-learning assignments and e-learning in general. We've created the how-to videos, both for teachers and then teachers for students. Again, answered questions from families around instruction or resources, as well as the e-learning tutoring help form. As far as the e-learning, our teachers have been updating Power Learning pages for students. We've provided videos, Microsoft Team meetings, feedback, grades, Microsoft voice calls, emails, trying to do everything they can to reach out to students and provide support and be mindful of this stressful time and this different learning environment. Ideally, we want kids in classrooms with our amazing teachers, but in this environment, being mindful that this is new for teachers, new for students, and new for families. So with that guidance, last week we started our first Flex Friday. This idea actually came from another county in South Carolina and was shared with us by a teacher from Smith Farm, Ms. Perkins. So thank you, Ms. Perkins, for sharing this with us. So the Flex Friday, on Fridays, we will not assign any new assignments. Students will only be assigned assignments Monday through Thursday. They will not be assigned extra work to make up on Friday or to do on Friday. A Friday is a day for Flex. So it's the day for students to have fun, to have leisure learning. We've given some suggestions about virtual field trips, and we're doing puzzles, drawing, painting, playing an instrument. Actually saw a great video about the students in Vienna where they were singing, I think it was Lean on Me, and doing that together. Emotional time, so we have some social emotional learning activities for families. And then just extra time, if students needed the extra time to continue with their work, they could use that Friday for that. And then also our EC staff, speech pathologists might reach out to students on Friday to provide services. Teachers can also hold small group tutoring sessions or one-on-one sessions with students on Fridays. So this was just started last week, and we will be using these Flex Friday days for the rest of the fourth quarter. And it was a great idea, and we're glad that teachers and educators share ideas with one another. So the grading guidelines that we followed for third quarter, grades that were entered into PowerSchool by March 13th included any instructional curriculum that had been shared by teachers, and grades collected by that date were included in third quarter grades. We also allowed students to complete any makeup assignments. If they were missing assignments, the things that were due by March 13th, they had until spring break to make up those assignments. In some cases, principals allowed them a little bit more time up until April 20th to complete it. Those grades were now calculated together into third quarter. It included any e-learning assignments or response to feedback. And those grades that were done during e-learning, we included if they improved a student's grade, but we did not use those to penalize a student or to pull a student's grades down. K2 report cards were standard-based, based on the standards that were covered by March 13th. And then the other report cards were numeric grades that were provided. The report cards for third quarter were mailed last week, and parents can also view those in the parent portal. For fourth quarter, we're focusing on essential learning necessary for students to be prepared for the next school year. So our team really scoured through our fourth quarter curriculum, recognizing the amount of time students were out of class, normal traditional setting, and knowing what would be vitally important for them to be successful when they started the next school year. That is what the fourth quarter is focused on. So families and students who are engaged in e-learning, please keep that up. It's going to help you. We do not want to have a summer slide plus a spring slide academically. So please keep up and please keep engaged. This is to help you to be prepared for next year. We are recording in the fourth quarter in PowerSchool the work that is completed and incompleted, giving students additional time to go back and complete assignments or to redo assignments based on teacher feedback and guidance. We're allowing multiple attempts to demonstrate mastery of learning. We are focusing on supporting students and helping them to grow, supporting them through social emotional supports, mastery learning supports, academic supports. This is not a time to penalize a student or give them zeros for not doing something. We really need to investigate and talk to students who are not completing work to find out why and see how we can remove barriers. And then our final grades for the year will be based on the decision from North Carolina Public Instruction and the State Board of Education. So last week, the Board of Ed met and provided us guidance for for final grades, final for the year. So this is what we will be doing according to the state for the final grades. For the elementary students, K-5, they will receive a narrative report card that will list the students' strengths and areas of growth for math, ELA, science, and social studies. There'll also be a general comment section where we may include things from encore classes or social emotional learning comments. May 28th will be the last day that we assign new learning for students, and we're asking for those assignments to be turned in by June 5th. We do know that some students may need additional time, and so we will allow that. Students who either have an IEP, 504 plan, or want to redo assignments to bring up a higher grade. But June 5th will be the date that we will ask for assignment, allowing some flexibility for students who need more time. For middle school, students will receive a PC-19 or WC-19 on their report card, which stands for pass withdrawal, and narrative comments on the report card. We're still awaiting some guidance from DPI on the actual details of how we'll input that, but that will be what students will see. If a middle school student is in a high school course, such as Math 1, Math 2, or a world language course, that high school course, they'll follow the directions for the high school that are listed below. Again, with middle school, May 28th, the last day that we'll assign new learning, and then the 5th being the day to turn in assignments, allowing for some flexibility if students need more time. I hope my sound is okay. I'm getting a message that my connection is a little off. And then for high school, this is different. We've already given guidance on, well, I don't think we've given guidance on seniors. The state has given guidance on seniors, which will be that pass-fail withdrawal. But for 9th through 11th grade, what they decided is to give students an option. So students in grades 9 through 11, they will either have the option of having a PC-19, a pass, which will award credit for the course. This is for the second semester. Will award credit, but it will not count towards the GPA. They will have a withdrawal 19 if we do not have enough information to demonstrate mastery for that class. The WC-19 does not mean a student has failed. It just means we do not have enough evidence to prove that they have passed that class. Students with a WC-19 will not have credit awarded for that semester course, and that will not count towards their GPA. Students in grades 9 through 11 will have a choice to go with the PC-19 or WC-19, or they can choose to ask for a numeric grade. So if a student has a 98 in a course, they can say, I'll rather take the numeric grade that will count towards their GPA. Or if they had maybe a 61, they may say, you know what, I'll take the PC-19. So students will have an option. We will give more information to families and parents as soon as we get some directions from DPI. But those are the guidance that that's the guidance that they have provided for students in 9 through 11. Again, the last day to assign new learning will be June 5th. And the week of June 8th through the 10th, that will be time for students and families to discuss and review the final grade and make a decision on if they want a numeric grade or a PC-19 or WC-19. The state did say that students with WC-19 will be allowed some credit recovery or to redo the course to demonstrate mastery. But all of this information will be shared. We shared some of that with principals today. We'll be sharing with teachers next week in a few Microsoft team meetings. And then we will provide guidance and directions on how this will happen, pending more directions from DPI. And then the final report cards and EC, the IEP progress reports will be mailed on June 12th for those that receive that. And then phase will continue until June 18th. Okay. So this is based on guidance that was provided last week. There is another meeting from DPI tomorrow, and they'll have another one on Thursday. So as I get more information, I'll be able to provide more information. Are there any questions?
Nicolette, this is Board Member Jones. I think I've been hearing some feedback from teachers, maybe mainly middle school teachers, around no longer being allowed to put in a 50 or something, I guess, in Power School to note to the parent maybe and the student that there's a missing assignment, and so I realize, and so there's been some, I don't know if that's something you guys will talk about to teachers next week, but how can they flag in there that there's assignment missing? And I think some of that was more about how would the parent know that I need to make sure the student is doing the work mastering.
What we've given guidance on so far is to enter grades if they have them, or incomplete if the assignment is incomplete.
Okay.
But we've also talked with teachers about having ongoing and regular communications with families. So in either phone calls, emails, follow-ups, they can also mention to parents that there's an assignment that's missing, or if a student completed something and it's a low grade, for them to have an opportunity to redo that. We should be giving feedback on what areas they may need support in, so that the students can go back and redo them.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Grant, this is Board Member Parker. So they do have an option now to get a grade in high school at the end of the fourth quarter, correct?
The students who are in 9 through 11, not for seniors, but students 9 through 11. And yes, DPI and the state board said that they had several stakeholder groups that they were listening to, and feedback from families across the state and input from educators. And that was the decision. They felt like they wanted students in high school to have that option for the GPA if they choose. They also had communications with our UNC college system. The college and UNC college system does prefer that students use a numeric grade. They want to see a C or higher on transcripts, but know that students do have the option for PC or WC. That shouldn't be seen as negative by the UNC college system, but they do prefer numeric. And the state has responded to feedback from the community and is providing that option.
This is Board Member Kaplan. Why not grade 12? Why not 12?
That came up at the end of the board meeting. I think it was Olivia Oxendine brought that up at the board meeting. And the decision that was made by the board at the time was that they had already discussed seniors and voted on seniors and communicated to seniors. And at that meeting, they were not going to make any changes to the seniors, but they said that they may come back and revisit that in a future conversation. But as of today, seniors are not included in that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Grant, this is Shay Woodbury. I also received calls from middle school teachers regarding the inequities that can be perceived by way of the option for pass, fail, or grade. And as it relates to middle schools, only, I guess, if the middle school student is taking a high school course, does it become an issue, correct?
Right. If a middle school student is taking a high school course, they'll have the option of the PC 19, WC 19, or numeric grade for their math 1, 2, or world language. Only those students will have that.
Okay, so I don't want to assume anything about, a student with, capacity even at the middle school level to take a high school course. Sometimes we, don't consider, even though those students academically, definitely progress, and they still may have some challenges. So I want to give them, just the benefit of advocacy around this issue regarding equity. You probably know that James Ford, one of the State Board of Education members, had a very passionate conversation with the board members about the perceived inequities, and definitely, in his opinion, obvious inequities that school districts could encounter regarding the option of pass fail versus a grade, which definitely impacts high school. But if we can speak to that as a district, how we are trying to reconcile or at least try to lessen the impact of what it could mean, giving students the choice, whether they're in middle school and have that option, or if they are 9th through 11th grade and have that option.
So as I mentioned, it'll be the family's decision. Students and families will talk together about what option they want to make and communicate that with their teachers and counselors. But during this time, we need to reach out, teachers, counselors, social workers, reach out to see what barriers exist that can be removed. For those students in middle school that take the high school course, they will get credit. So even if they do choose a numeric grade, which will be in the transcript, that is not figured into their GPA for their high school GPA, but that will be an option for them. And the state just really reemphasized that the WC in the end does not indicate failure, just means that we don't have enough information to demonstrate mastery. So that they want to make sure that we clearly communicate that with our families and our community.
Okay, so if a student receives a WC, will there be a mandatory, or is it optional that they retake the class?
It depends on if the class is required for graduation. So if it is a required course for graduation, they may want to take a credit recovery or retake the course.
Okay. I think that you definitely responded to the implication of whatever inequities, but you know, where the road meets the rubber, I just want to be clear with the community regarding, you know, some concerns about when some children do not have at home the level of advocacy in order for them to make the best decisions. I think that's the point that James Ford brought to the attention of North Carolina. And then, so how will schools try to serve as that extra support for students? Because I mean, especially in high schools, if you're 16, you can, you know, emancipate yourself, and therefore you are your advocate, and you don't have, you know, adult figures in your life to help you to make those decisions. So that's definitely would be, you know, a situation I can think of immediately where a student may make a decision without adult input that isn't, you know, beneficial. So that's the point that I want us to, you know, be aware of in our school district. And I'm not sure if you have any feedback on that, or if Ms. McMillan does, but I just think that we need to be aware of our most vulnerable students that may be making decisions without strong home support.
Right, and Effie McMillan is working with us and bringing those concerns up, similar to James Ford. And I guess to reiterate what Board Member Burke said, reaching out to those students who may be struggling or may not be as engaged, to invite to our Jumpstart Summer Bridge program. The state has outlined first through fourth literacy, but has also told us if we have the ability to expand that to math, upper grades. And so we're looking at that for summer school. So those might be just those students that we need, that through the Jumpstart, we may be able to provide that credit recovery option for some of our high school students. So we're investigating that and looking at options to support those students this summer.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions or further comments to Ms. Grant?
This is Elizabeth, and what I wanted to just say is I think it's really hard. Some people's thinking is naturally more flexible, and they can move from one way of doing things to another way with relative ease. And then other people are so used to seeing things but this is how it's always been in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think, and I appreciate so much from you, Nicolette, is your spirit of empathy. And I'm hoping that really gets communicated to teachers and to principals, that as difficult as this is for adults, all children are experiencing some level of trauma or another.
Right.
And I really appreciate the focus on don't penalize.
Absolutely.
What are the essential things children need to learn? And how can we assure that those kids are getting what they need so they can move forward with some confidence next year? But
Absolutely.
I appreciate so much the spirit in which you're talking about grading, and I hope people can have more empathy for children than focus on performance. Some of them, performance is the way that they deal with stress, but that's not true for everybody. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and that's definitely the direction that our state board is giving us as well. Grace and flexibility is a phrase that they want us to use. This is not easy for anyone. It's very difficult watching the news or just adjusting to not having your friends, and it's a difficult time for students and teachers. So just being mindful of that we're here to support students. We're not here just to grade students. They're little people that need to be supported emotionally as well as academically. So thank you. But we are sharing that with principals, the same message with principals and with teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. I think if there are no more questions or comments.
I have a question, Chair Woodbury.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Grant, I've received several calls from parents of Career Center cosmetology students, and they're very concerned about the 1,200 hours of instruction that their seniors would have received by the end of this school year. And the 1,200 hours that they would have received would have been paired with 300 additional hours to do an apprenticeship at a licensed salon, and that would in turn give the students 1,500 hours so that they could apply for their state board license. And they're concerned and would like to know if they will be able to receive those additional hours before the end of this school year. Do you know?
We're not exactly sure. Bruce Sherman has been working with DPI to get guidance on all of our CTE programs. We have a similar situation with our nursing program where students were not able to finish their hours that were required to get their CNA. So Bruce Sherman is working with the state on that. Some of that is not something we control because we rely on outside agencies for that and guidance from DPI on when we're allowed for that. So I do not have an answer yet. I just know that the conversations have been occurring and they're trying to find what solutions or can we extend the time that students can do that over the summer. But I don't have a definitive answer from the state yet on that.
Well, thank you so much. And if you do receive any information, please let me know so that I can share it with these parents. And I'm sure that their teachers at the Career Center will share this information as well. Thank you so much for all that.
You're welcome. And we're going to look into all of our credentialed courses where work hours are required, so we can give you an update on that as soon as we have it.
Thank you.
Ms. Grant, I think that those are all the questions and comments. So we will move to Kevin Sherrill, our Chief Technology Officer, who will discuss with us e-learning, access to devices, Wi-Fi, and Power School Learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. Good evening, board members, Chair Woodbury, and Dr. Hairston. I want to take just a moment to give you an update on some of the things we've done from a technology standpoint to support instruction. Nicolette touched on several of these, and we've been fortunate to partner with our instructional services to give the devices and the connectivity that our students need to support instruction during this time of e-learning at home. So we focused on several areas. Some of those were our Chromebook distribution, our internet connectivity, which is our hotspots, our Wi-Fi for our kids, our staff technology support. What did our staff need when they went home in a work-from-home environment to continue to do their work, not only our teachers, but our staff from the central office, and how are we supporting all of these folks remotely? And of course, kind of the core to some of our work instructionally has been our PowerSchool Learning, LMS, our learning management system. What have we done to encourage and promote that use as our core platform for learning? As Nicolette mentioned, we deployed a great many Chromebooks in a very short amount of time. We roughly 23,000 Chromebooks went home with students, and that's coupled with our 4 middle schools that are Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. Those kids are carrying 2,400 of those kids are carrying iPads. So we're looking at roughly 26,000 mobile devices were deployed to our students in a take-home one-to-one program for our e-learning support. We took an opportunity to purchase internet hotspots, Wi-Fi access for our families that did not have that. Upon request, they were able to have a hotspot issued to them that gives those families an opportunity to get online and do their work with the Chromebooks and other devices they may have at home. We've deployed just over 3,400 of those devices. We still have some unassigned that we're able to offer for summer school, and some other needs going into next school year. We'll be able to use those as well. In addition to Wi-Fi for our students, we also provided some internet hotspots for staff that did not have connectivity in their homes for various reasons. We deployed over 250 internet hotspots for some of our staff members that needed a connection to continue to do the instruction in their work. Along those same lines, we deployed laptops to staff that were not laptop users in the building. We have a lot of staff that are still desktop computer users. We deployed laptops to them, VPN, digital phones, working software phones that work off their laptops. We packed printers and all kinds of things that we sent home with our staff central office so they can continue to do their work. So that's just a picture there of some of the packages that we put together for our finance department. Actually, that picture represents that as we sent them home to continue to do their work from their home offices. Remote support, we have a district hotline staff with 5 employees daily. They're taking calls about just really anything school district related around remote learning, whether it be meal sites or how to pick up devices or whatever it may be. We have those folks maintaining that general hotline, but we also have roughly 20 folks, 20 technicians and technology staff per day manning our technology service desk. And we are averaging just over 400 calls per day from students, parents, teachers, all around supporting the learning process and any technical or software or instructional question they may have. We've got folks manning that call center on a daily basis, around 400 calls per day. As I mentioned, PowerSchool Learning, these next 2 graphs here, the blue represents our teachers. As we ramped up, you can kind of just see the graphical representation of the usage as we ramped up through this process of going home and developing our e-learning platform at people's homes. You can see that the teacher increased, and you can see that our student usage has increased dramatically as well as we encourage our students and our teachers to use our LMS for instruction. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of the things that we did from a technology standpoint to support instruction and e-learning. Are there any questions? I can entertain those now.
Mr. Sherrill, this is Shay Woodbury, and so I have a question. I think for those of us who are definitely challenged when it comes to hardware, I know more, I think, on the software side than the hardware, but the question that I have that has been presented to me by community folk and definitely some of our, municipal figures is about the reliability of hotspots. So is there a grade or is there a disadvantage between, I guess, a regular internet service coming through the home and then the hotspots, the mobile, I guess, devices that allow for internet connectivity?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, answer is yes. A hardwired connection, like for example from Spectrum, is a much more reliable connection than a Wi-Fi hotspot. These hotspots carry the Verizon LTE signal. So if the Verizon signal is strong in the neighborhoods where these hotspots are being used, then the Wi-Fi devices are going to be strong. If the Verizon signal is poor, then it's going to be reflected on that. So we obviously we couldn't provide wired connections to our families. We could recommend that through Spectrum and AT&T, and there's a lot of services out there that are offering low-cost solutions for our families, and we did make those programs available to them. But as far as what we were able to provide, we did provide Wi-Fi hotspots that carry mobile signal, and we partnered with Verizon to do that as far as the LTE service that we provide. So the answer to your question is yes, a hardwired connection is more reliable than the Wi-Fi connection that we were able to provide, but this gave us the coverage that we were able to do for our families. Does that answer that question, Ms. Woodbury?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Kevin, this is Andrea Bramer.
Hey.
Just a note that use a hardwire service. We use an Extreme service. I'm not naming the company, but broadband is currently having a lot of stretch. So many people using it. So there's a lot of disconnection happening that way as well.
You know, that's a great point. That's a nationwide thing. There's a lot of volume and a lot of bandwidth being used for this. Not just K-12, but every business just about across the nation is working from home. So, you know, the bandwidth has been at a premium for just about every industry. But that's a great point, Ms. Bramer. Other questions around technology and e-learning?
Hey, Kevin, this is Dana Jones. I just wanted to, I think if we have friends that live in other places of the state, and by far our district, I would think, is leading the way and has led the way in e-learning. So I know it's not perfect, and but I do want to thank you and all of those on your staff. I know that also goes to our principals and teachers and just everyone who, first of all, deployed the tools, and then for all those who are answering all those questions, 400 and some calls a day. So I know parents appreciate that, as well as I'm sure staff. But you're getting people through a new frontier, and we do appreciate the leadership.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to say thank you to our superintendent. You know, we made a decision to move quickly with e-learning. There's a lot of districts around us, and my colleagues in other counties are asking us, how did you move so quickly with Wi-Fi devices and all these things? And, our kids have had these devices for almost 5 weeks now, and districts around us are now just starting to think about it. So, I give a lot of credit to our superintendent and our executive cabinet leadership to make some quick decisions to not pause the instructional process. So we're able to really dig in, and we've got a great technology staff, and they did a tremendous amount of work in a short amount of time to pull this off, and I'm very proud of them. Other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Woodbury.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrill. Next, we will have Mr. Haman Atashbar to discuss with us the kindergarten choice magnet update. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Board Chair Woodbury, members of the board, Dr. Hairston. This is Haman Atashbar. I'm here to share an update about our kindergarten and magnet and choice period. All right, the kindergarten magnet and choice application started on April 6th and is open now and will close at 4:30 p.m. on May 1st. Again, parents may choose up to 3 magnet schools and also rank their top choices in their choice zone. The link is in my presentation, but you can get to it from the student assignment pages. The results of the application, once we finalize those on May 1st, it's closed. We'll have a magnet lottery on May 7th, and then from there we'll calculate all the results with the choices and everything else. So parents should expect to get results back the results of their applications around May 14th. So just again, the application is not time sensitive. We don't want any extra stress on folks. Anybody that applies during the period has the same opportunity. Just updated some numbers as of today for you. The presentation that I gave earlier had numbers as of the day I submitted that I just updated the numbers. So we got about 809 total applications right now, 466 magnet applications, and these include the parents that had applied during the magnet period that was in the December-January timeline, and then 343 choice applications. So I've, any questions for me?
Okay, Mr. Tashbar, I think that there may not be any questions for you at this time. So job well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Next, we will have Miss Andrea Gillis, who is our Chief Financial Officer, and she will be discussing with us a budget amendment.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodbury, Dr. Harrison, and board members. I'm going to share my screen right now so that you can see the budget amendment. Budget amendment and transfer number 2. So the first one is a state public school fund. We did have a small transfer. Let me scroll back up. For behavior support grant. We also had an amendment for the Safe Schools grant that was brought forward to you by Jonathan Wilson. And we had a budget amendment for the twice retained funds for our Read to Achieve program. Those are the state budget amendments for the month. We also had some federal grants. Our 6B handicap grant was finally approved, and that amendment was done for $11,291,188. We also had PRC 70, our intervening services grant, that was approved, and that got amended. We also had some additional 21st century learning grants for $24,000 for a grand total of $13 million in federal grant amendments.
Hey, Andrea, this is Kevin. Could you expand that screen just a little bit so that the viewers have a little better view of that PDF? Just right down at the bottom there, the plus symbol on the far bottom right.
Oops.
With the plus sign right there on the right on the bottom right side.
I don't even see it anymore. I'm having technical difficulty. Sam, could you pull it up for me?
Let me see what I can do. All right, Andrea,
Okay.
where do you need me to be?
You can go to the third page, the other restricted funds. And here we have some small other restricted amendments for our community partners and foundations. A lot of this is carryover from the prior year that we're appropriating. The majority of it is from Project Impact, and for the Project Impact pre-K grant. That's about $2.4 million if you scroll to the third page, to 2 more pages down. We had about $500,000 in the Project Impact Pre-K Teacher Development Grant. Another $169,000 for Great Expectations Grant. And those are the major ones. We also got the United Way Tutoring Program grant of $460,000. $130,000 to pay for Forsyth Promise evaluation work. The Verizon Coach grant got appropriated. So a lot of this is just carryover that was not appropriated when we adopted the budget, but we are appropriating it now. We have our Chartwell's funds appropriated as well. The grand total of the other restricted funds appropriated was $4,851,158. In addition, we had some capital outlay funds appropriated. Most of these were carryover of the bond funds that needed to be appropriated for the year. So these are just bond fund carryovers that have to be appropriated this year. And the grand total of that was $31,948,406. Are there any questions on the budget amendments? I'm sorry, we did have a few transfers, Sam. Please go to the next page. We did have a few transfers. We transferred $150 in the Arts Ed program. We transferred approximately $11,000 from Kernersville did for their discretionary budget, and then $16,820 for early college at another transfer. Are there any questions on the budget amendments and transfers? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. Since there are no questions or comments for Ms. Gillis, then we will go to the Tyler Industries contract. I think there needs to be an adjustment, and Kevin Sherrill will review that with us.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. This is very brief. You remember several months ago now, we entered into a contract with Tyler Technologies to upgrade our ERP system, our Enterprise Resource Planning System, which is our financial systems and all of our HRMS systems. We just started kicking that process off, and the state froze some of the funding that we were expecting from them. And then, of course, we went into the situation that we're in now with the school closure. And so this amendment is from Tyler to us, just stating that we are basically pushing the pause button on this project. Our SaaS fees, which are our software as a service fees, those are going to be placed on hold until we amend the timeline and the initial terms around engaging into this project with Tyler as we get back on track. So we don't have a definite timeline on state funding for this project, or some of the local funding that we're going to use as well. So this is basically just a quick amendment that we need to approve to agree back with Tyler Technologies that we are basically pausing for the time being until we can renegotiate our terms based on our new timeline and funding from the state. Any questions around that?
Anyone on the line for public comment, please announce yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrill. Next, we will go to our action items. Before we do, I do want to update that we have not been able to get any public comments on the phone to speak to us this evening. I'm not sure if it's a technical issue or if they just didn't call in, particularly from the agenda items. And so as of right now, there are no public comments on the agenda item, nor the open session. Move forward and start to take action. Yes, ma'am, Dr. Hairston.
No comment.
Okay. So the first action item is to consider approval of budget amendment number 2 and transfer number 2. Is there a motion?
Yes, Chair Woodbury.
Move to approve.
I'll second Elizabeth's motion.
Any further questions or discussion? Okay, Dr. Harrison, if you can,
Okay, Chair Woodbury,
yes.
Lyda Calvert-Hayes,
Yes.
Barbara Burr,
Yes.
Andrea Bramer,
Aye.
Dana Jones,
Yes.
Leah Crowley, Deanna Kaplan,
Yes.
Elizabeth Motzinger,
Yes.
and Marilyn Parker.
Yes.
All in favor, thank you.
Sam, can you see if something is going on with Leah's, sound?
Let me check on it.
Okay, thank you. The next action item is to consider approval of utilizing the remaining 2016 through 18 2/3 bond funds for roof repair. Is there a motion?
So moved. Lyda.
Second?
Are there any further questions or discussion? Okay, Dr. Harrison, can you take?
Chair Woodbury,
Yes.
Lyda Calvert-Hayes,
Yes.
Barbara Burr,
Yes.
Andrea Bramer,
Yes.
Dana Jones,
Yes.
Leah Crowley, Deanna Kaplan,
Yes.
Elizabeth Motzinger,
Yes.
and Marilyn Parker. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there may be some issues with Marilyn Parker's sound as well, and so we'll check on that and get you definitely the final count. But as is, they were on the call when we started, and I think no matter what they voted, those actions would pass. Correct?
Yes, I had Marilyn Parker. I believe.
Okay.
I had Marilyn
Yeah,
Parker.
Chair Woodbury, mine is, mine.
Yeah, I have her. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I think now we're just trying to figure out with Board Member Crowley. So the next item is to consider approval of architect for North Forsyth High School renovation project. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, Board Member Kaplan.
Second, Board Member Parker.
Any further questions or discussions?
Yes.
This is Board Member Jones. I would just like to say that I hope that we really try our best to make sure that we are using local firms when we're doing these bond projects. These are, paid by our taxpayer dollars here in Forsyth County, and I think it's extremely important that we try to keep this business as much as we can in Forsyth County.
I totally agree. This is bond money, which has been raised by our people here in Forsyth County, and I have been served on the Buildings and Grounds for my last term, and I found that the architects that we used here that were local did an outstanding job. And I agree. I would like to keep our local funds local.
And I really appreciate that. And my suggestion would be that we talk with our general counsel to see how we might review the process, because the process of bidding doesn't currently include that measure. And so it might be a good idea during committee to have that discussion with our board attorney so she can share that information and best practices that keep us legal, okay?
Can we table this until we discuss this?
It was voted on out of committee, and we bring it to the full board for a vote. And I did review the matter with Mr. Moore, and at this time, they followed the process which does not include preference for local. Our vending process does not include a process that places weights on the local companies or vendors. So I guess what you would probably need, and I'll ask Dion to chime in, you would need a substitute motion. And someone would need to make a substitute motion to vote on this item, to rescind it and move forward. So let me get Dion to give you some guidance on how to handle a substitute motion on this matter.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, and hopefully my pups do not start barking in the background. But there has been a motion and second on this one. So at this point, in order to change that, we would need a motion, a motion to substitute this with a motion to table and a second to that motion, and then you'd have to have a majority of the board approve that motion.
Okay, could I make a substitute motion to table that? This is Lyda.
Yeah, I'll second a substitute motion.
Are there any questions or discussions about the substitute motion and second?
This is Board Member Parker. I guess I do have a question. Are the architects under any obligation to use a certain percentage of local subcontractors and such as that, or is that totally up to them? I thought that at some point there was some kind of revision in there that they had to abide by some kind of direction there.
Ms. Parker, was this question directed at me or was it directed at Mr. Moore?
Well, whomever can answer it.
I will say that I'm not aware of a previous requirement of that. I know as that's always been a goal of this district to utilize as many local contractors as possible, but I'll let Mr. Moore chime in on anything in addition he has to offer. And I'm happy between now and later, if this does get tabled, to do any additional research as necessary.
Okay.
So we probably will need to go to Darrell Walker. Mr. Walker, are you on the able to respond, or would you prefer to do more research?
I am on the call. There was some comments Mr. Moore made at the committee meeting about that Ms. Parker, similar to what Ms. Parker mentioned, that they were going to utilize some local support. I think this architect may be out of Charlotte, maybe I could be wrong about that, but that they were going to leverage some local support, but their main office is not here in Forsyth County. So part of what you said, Ms. Parker, I think is correct. But I do want to acknowledge what Ms. Calvert-Hayes and Ms. Jones mentioned, is that they do not have a local office in Forsyth County.
So Mr. Walker, to your knowledge, they're not under any obligation then to use a certain percentage or can we require that at all?
There's no requirement in our bid process or evaluation process, but we can surely go back and have that conversation. I do believe that they had told Mr. Moore they were going to leverage some of our local people to help support them, but there was no requirement behind that.
Right, okay. So they're under no obligation then?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for Dion. Apparently, we have already voted to approve the contractor for that roof for the North Forsyth High School renovation project. Therefore, if we have and we go back and try to, I guess, change in policy how we consider or how we would rate bids based on, giving preference to local, is that would that be considered an unfair practice?
So I think what you're asking is part procedure and also part legal advice, which I'm not comfortable giving unless we're in sort of a closed session. However,
Okay.
what I would say is that we don't know ultimately what the result would be. It seems like if the board wants more information at this point and they want to table the motion, we certainly can, and we can get more information to you, and then we can determine the best course of action at that point.
Okay. So if there are no more questions and discussion about the motion and second to table, to substitute.
This is Elizabeth. I do have a question.
Okay.
And here's my question is, if it came out of committee and it was approved through committee, and that one of the things that we do not have as part of our guidelines, whether they're state or local guidelines, and we decide not to approve a contract based on something that's not considered relevant when the first vote was taken, are we putting ourselves in a difficult position? Because we didn't, when we put it out to bid, that was not part of the guideline.
You definitely are raising a concern about, the look of going back and retroactively changing a process. But again, if it's information that the board needs, we can certainly table it and to get you additional information. But I would not, at this point, advise to go back and substitute provisions in the review process that weren't originally there.
So
this is Board Member Jones. I think that I would like to just have some clarification when we say the firm is willing to leverage some local companies. I'm not really sure exactly what that really means, and so if we could get just some clarification on that would be nice. And then, I agree. You can't meet something that's not there, but I do think it's something for us to look forward to or investigate for others. But I'm just would like just a little bit more detail.
I agree, and I would also be interested in knowing the MWBE companies that they are going to include in this also.
Okay, are you ready, Chair Woodbury?
Yes, so there has been a motion and second, first to offer a substitute motion. And so now we need to take a vote on the substitute motion.
Okay, Chair Woodbury?
Yes.
Lila Calvert-Hayes?
Yes.
Barbara Burke?
No.
Andrea Bramer?
Yes.
Dana Jones?
Yes.
Leah Crowley? She has texted me no. Deanna Kaplan?
No.
Elizabeth Motzinger?
no.
Marilyn Parker?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The substitute motion passes 5-4. We will bring back information to the committee.
So now do we have to have a motion to table the issue to get more information according to, I guess, Robert Rue's and Dion's recommendation?
That's what you voted on? You
Yes.
voted to table it, so we will bring back, and what I would ask, so that we're clear, because we brought this to a committee 2 weeks ago. What I would ask is that you email me directly the information you'd like to see us bring back to the, and copy Dion to the committee meeting, so that we can bring that back for information, and then we'll bring it back for a full board vote on the new business at the committee meeting on the 12th. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is to consider approval of the disposition of surplus property vehicles. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
Further questions or discussion? Okay, Dr. Harrison, if you could take the vote.
Chair Woodbury,
Yes.
Lyda Calvert Hayes,
Yes.
Barbara Berg,
Yes.
Andrea Bramer,
Yes.
Dana Jones,
Yes.
Leah Crowley, and she's texting me her votes because we can't hear her. Deanna Kaplan,
Yes.
Elizabeth Motzinger,
Yes.
and Marilyn Parker.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item for consideration is the approval of the amendment to Tyler Industries contract. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Elizabeth.
Second, Parker.
Okay, Chair Woodbury. I'm sorry, Chair Woodbury, I got ahead of you.
Yeah, are there any further questions or discussion? Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison.
Okay, Chair Woodbury,
Yes.
Lyda Calvert Hayes,
Yes.
Barbara Berg,
Yes.
Andrea Bramer,
Yes.
Dana Jones,
Yes.
Leah Crowley, Deanna Kaplan,
Yes.
Elizabeth Motzinger,
Yes.
and Marilyn Parker.
Yes.
Thank you much.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda items, which include items A through E. A is to consider approval of the meeting minutes from December the 10th. And so let me explain before we, take the vote, is that apparently for the meeting minutes for December the 10th and for the special call meeting on December the 17th, we cannot verify a record that the board approved those minutes. So that's why they are there. Item B is to consider approval of the special call board meeting minutes. Then C is to consider approval of the meeting minutes from March 24th. And then D is to consider approval of meeting minutes from April 7th, work session. And then E is to consider approval of the general personnel report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
Move to approve, Jones.
Can we clarify the second, Chair Woodbury? We have the first, Ms. Jones, and then who second?
Bramer.
All right.
Are there any further questions or discussion? Okay, Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury,
Yes.
Lyda Calvert Hayes,
Yes.
Barbara Berg,
Yes.
Andrea Bramer,
Yes.
Dana Jones,
Yes.
Leah Crowley. She checks yes. Deanna Kaplan,
Yes.
Elizabeth Motzinger,
Yes.
and Marilyn Parker. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you much.
Thank you. The next item is our open to the public item. And do we still not have any comments on call?
We do not, but now's a good time as if we continue the virtual meetings for perhaps another 2 meetings, maybe or maybe not, to encourage our public to seek out those opportunities on our website. The phone number is listed, and we do mail the contact information once they sign up for public comment. So we want to encourage people to use our system of call-in, but we do not have it at this time.
Okay, the next item is announcements, and I think Sam Mills will review our announcements.
Yes, thank you, Chair Woodbury. So really briefly, we are really excited about some upcoming events. As you can see, May 1st is our School Lunch Hero Day. We are doing a variety of activities to try
I'm not sure if it is, are we having some sound issues with Sam?
Yes.
Yes, I cannot hear him.
I can't either.
So I'll continue and pick it up if you don't mind. May 1st is our School Lunch Hero Day, so we want to take time to celebrate our frontline workers who are delivering lunches and to our children. April 19th through 25th was the National Volunteer Week. We know it's a little past, but we want to make sure that we recognize all of our volunteers. And then certainly we do not want to forget that May 4th through 8th is Teacher Appreciation Week. I think Chair Woodbury has some comments about Teacher Appreciation Week. And we want to make sure that we take time to recognize our teachers virtually or otherwise. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Harrison. So, I believe that one of the key factors to lessen the impact of or at least eradicate racism or poverty in our society is a good education. I think teachers educate students, and so many others support this fundamental practice of teaching and learning. Teachers affect eternity. No one can tell where their influence will stop. This was said by Henry Brooks Adams, a historian and teacher, and just so happened brother of one of our presidents, John Quincy Adams. The best advice I received from one of my teachers came, he said, Ms. Woodbury, what you lack in intellectual capacity, you make up in umph. And I've carried that with me for a long time. So that was captured by the late Charles Sumner, as we affectionately called him, Chuck Stone Jr., who was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was an American journalist, a professor at UNC Chapel Hill, one of the first president of the National Association of Black Journalists. And as he would tell us in class, he was a very good friend of Martin Luther King Jr. Every one of us, even the great teachers of Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, was influenced to be who we are today by a great teacher. So on behalf of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education, we thank all of our educators, especially our teachers, and we recognize National Teacher Appreciation Week. We ask that you follow us on Twitter with the hashtag WSFCS, Thank a Teacher, and we challenge every Winston-Salem Forsyth County citizen who is able to do so to say or do something to thank a teacher. So we really thank all of our educators, and again, especially our teachers. And we recognize the importance of May 4th through 8th as National Teacher Appreciation Week. And so with that being said, I hope that Sam's audio is being fixed, but if not, we've come to the end of our meeting. If there are no more comments before I adjourn the meeting. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Board member.
Second, Motzinger.
Thank you. Dr. Harrison, you want to take the vote?
Certainly, we'll take the vote if there's any opposed. All in favor, any opposed? All right, I think we have everyone agreeing at this point, Chair Woodbury.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, and we definitely continue to ask all of the citizens of Winston-Salem Forsyth County to be safe, be in prayer, and we are all in this together for all of our children. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for joining us on Your School Channel, Cable 2.